Thanks for sticking around to listen to us talk a little bit about some ways you can optimize your social media on a shoestring budget. We're going to take it a step further. These are some kind of low-cost, no-cost options that we'll look at. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the theory behind the recommendations we're going to be making for you, as well as kind of the thought process that's gone into it. And then also joining me here to my left is Carrie from Oceana, who not only has been an amazing partner through many projects, but has also been working with us experimenting on this exact question. We've got a few show and tell items to take a look at, and we will leave 10 minutes near the end for some Q&A about other projects we've got in the works. Let's see how these slides work. They don't. Left, right, no?
Do I need to stand up
I might just hit a button, maybe. There we go. There we go. Carrie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, I'm Carrie Wilt. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing at Oceana. I oversee all things digital, fundraising, advocacy, operations, all those things.
And I'm Brian Kessler. I'm Vice President of Strategy at Foresight. We're a small web agency in Washington, D.C. that specializes in engaging networks. If you've ever heard of or used the free and flexible templates, those were a project we partnered with Engaging Networks on, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago to offer. And we've continued kind of evolving and refining our solutions for engaging networks over the years. As some would say, we're kind of all in on the platform. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but also if you've got some very hard to answer EN problem, those are the ones I like. Come to me with your hardest problems and we can geek out about it after the talk.
Okay, so we are going to be talking about social sharing, and Brian did this beautiful slide. It's so simple, but it's so true. This is how it all started, was the lovely click here, blue, highlighted, underlined, click here.
Yeah, and you're starting to see some platforms actually going back to the blue underlined highlighted button, because it's like, we got carried away with styling them. But it was like, this was it, right? I don't know, anyone around the 90s, like, this is how things got shared. You'd have like 30 links, whether it was on a web page or maybe an email you were putting together for friends and family.
And then to 2007, how many of you are familiar with the OG image tag?
Yeah, who knows what an OG image is? Those are the people that have been in code?
Yeah, those are the coders, for sure. So basically, and he will be able to explain this way better than I can, but the code that Facebook takes and that reads and displays what the image and the text that you, what you want to share on Facebook.
Yeah, and you don't really think about this because it just kind of works as you expect now, but right, there was a time when you would share a link and it was just a link, and we were happy with it. And then we started grabbing images, and every platform was doing it differently. But in 2007, OG image, OG stands for the Open Graph. It was actually started by Facebook. They defined their own standard for, hey, if you conform to this standard, then we will use that information in your Facebook post. And as a predominant platform, they really shifted the industry. And there's proprietary ones for Twitter, X, and other platforms, but OG image almost became like the de facto standard. And it was fun. I got to dig around through the Wayback Machine to try to find a 2007 era Facebook share, and that's what it used to look like. It's not terribly different than from today, but that is actually a period accurate Facebook.
Who here knows what was even before Facebook sharing in terms of sharing nonprofit or any content really, but specifically nonprofits? Anybody?
Like listservs.
I was thinking tell a friend.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's going even farther back, but
who's on the Progressive Exchange listserv? Anyone? Yeah. Just so you know, I guess I'll do a PSA. The listserv is changing. we have to migrate due to reasons. So if you want to stay connected, probably in the next month or two, start checking it because you're going to get a new link to re-sign up for it. But yeah, listservs are still around. They're still a thing. No embedded photos though. They're still just links. But in the 2020s, social networks look a lot different than they did back then. Kind of chat systems are back with a vengeance. For me personally, I'm on Discord and Slack. Discord is just like gamer Slack. But that's where I do most of my back and forth and conversing and link sharing. And then I've got a million different group apps that I'm messaging through, like WhatsApp for all my friends and family overseas, and then iMessage for everybody in the States. But there's a plethora of platforms now, and one of the ones, the biggest platform in terms of active users engagement is YouTube. And I want to talk about YouTube for a moment because I think it is the most competitive of these social platforms in terms of the amount of effort that you have to put in to create a video if you're trying to grow a channel, and how make or break getting initial clicks on that video can be. And so you can actually learn a lot about best practices by looking at YouTube thumbnails, even if you're on Facebook or Twitter.
So in 2022, social media ad impressions grew by more than 30%. TikTok, LinkedIn, Reddit, Snapchat, Instagram, and other social platforms generate about 25% of all website referral traffic.
Yeah, I probably should turn off those iPhone reminders that tell me how much my screen time is up. but I mean, maybe I'm using COVID as an excuse for why it went up and never went back down, but definitely my browsing habits have permanently changed since COVID. I do a lot more engagement on social media because it was like I wanted to feel connected with a community, and I was literally disconnected. And now I have those new networks that I use. I have those new habits that I formed. So going back to that YouTube proving ground, what do you see when you look at YouTube thumbnails today and titles? I mean, that's a large variety, but there are some patterns that start to emerge. And I'm going to use one of my examples, one of my favorite YouTubers. And I subscribe to just over, I think, 250 YouTube channels. I'll tell you why that matters in a moment. Tom Scott. Anyone recognize Tom Scott? If you have kids, they probably recognize Tom Scott.
Amanda does.
Yeah, the whole pattern of learning and education is changing online. So you have this whole generation of science communicators. They're not learning from Bill Nye the Science Guy. They're learning from people on YouTube producing YouTube and TikTok and other video-first social networks, producing content that's of interest to them and will drive clicks against the algorithm. But what you see though in this very competitive landscape is you see branding, which is very strange. If you look at nonprofits, most of when you share something on social media, it's almost indistinguishable from another one. But you see brand colors, you see text and images, almost always. When we go back to that previous one, you'll see it. You see repeatable patterns. So when I'm scrolling through my list of hundreds of subscriptions that I have and all the new videos they've published, in the last few days since I last checked, I can spot a Tom Scott video before my brain even internalizes that's what it is, because that pattern that he's created through the consistent branding really triggers that serotonin release, and I'm like, oh, that was one of my favorite ones. I gotta watch that right now, or add it to my watch later list. But you're not getting that if you're not doing that, and so you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You see science. Like I said, it's make or break. You could have an entire team of people producing a video for a month, and then you're going to publish it, right? That's not the same as someone sharing a blog on Facebook. They're a much bigger commitment to the success of those videos. They have to be. They're literally the revenue source, either through sponsored content or ads. And so you see hiring happening to generate the thumbnails. And it's kind of unspoken, but in addition, there'll be the titles and some of the other metadata that goes with it. But there are whole careers and professions emerging to the science of that thumbnail and that initial engagement.
So what can you control when optimizing for sharing? The image, of course, the title, the excerpt that's underneath there, the domain name, and that little icon over there, the verification. You said that's new, right? That's something that
Well,
I
it's new for me.
yeah, I didn't know.
I just recently got back on. I had a lot of military buddies when Trump got elected, and Facebook was not a safe space. So I left, and I've recently come back
He's
after.
coming back.
Yeah, after Reddit and X stopped being a safe space, I was like, I'm not having fun here anymore. But yeah, when I left, they did. I don't believe they had that little verification badge, and Oceana does, and it just adds that little bit of difference, that little bit of recognition that other organizations that haven't gone through the certification process possibly are not getting.
Okay, next slide. Yeah. So the image is about 80%, everything else 20%. On Facebook mobile, it's even different. The split's about 77%, 23%. And Brian just told me today that X is thinking about going to 100% image in the post. So that could change everything.
Yeah, you never know, but Elon's not afraid of trying something, and then going back on it, or just committing and saying this is it. But he said it, so it's like a non-zero chance that it could happen. I'm not actually against it. I don't think it's the worst idea. But even if it doesn't, like just looking on Facebook here, like 80%, and what are you clicking? You're not clicking that title. You're gonna click that image. Mobile, desktop, it doesn't matter. But that's the focus, and everyone really focuses on that title, but it's not what people are reading. And it's one of the reasons that on those YouTube thumbnails, you start to see text in the image, even shorter than the title, something punchy, something sweet. So we spent time trying to figure this out and ultimately decided, hey, maybe there's a product here that could do this automatically. That, for those one-offs, you want to create an image, spend time in Photoshop, you could do it. Or maybe we could have a service, though, that works across all your digital properties and just creates imagery on the fly with all of those best practices incorporated. So that's what we've set out to do, and we've been trialing with Oceana. And we'll talk about some of these on here that, Carrie, I think a few of these specifically, like, when you saw the examples we showed, you were like, yes, I want that. It was like shiny.
So a lot of things you showed me. Yeah, I mean, and sourcing the high quality photos, obviously really important. Getting the size and the aspect ratio correct for each platform. And of course that changes, so making sure that you know what the right aspect ratio, the right size is. And what Brian was explaining to me in the beginning of the share-thon process is like that's something that they can just update once and
it's kind of cool when you start to think of it as a service rather than like an image we created once.
Right.
You can dynamically change it. So like literally in the process of doing this, like the ChatGPT-4 revolution kind of started to happen, and it was like, what if we rewrote your title on the fly? What if we condensed it? What if you got a really long title that's not great for a thumbnail? And so those are some of the things we're thinking about that used to be a manual process again, and it's not going to scale to your hundreds of pages that you have on your website or the hundreds of advocacy and donation pages you're producing throughout the year. And so again, it's not going to replace if you're doing one-offs like hand-tuned social sharing imagery, but like your default should be not good but great. It deserves to be great because you put in a lot of time to develop that page, to write that copy, to promote it. And then you have a supporter who's going to go and share a link to your website, to your campaign, to your fundraising page, and it's going to look kind of wonky.
And you'll see some examples of ours that did before.
Yeah, let's take a look. So our very first beta client was PETA's Animal Rahat, which is an animal sanctuary in India. And they have a completely different audience, a lot of Indian folks coming there that are sharing on WhatsApp. So just kind of a different social network than you might traditionally consider. I felt that emoji was appropriate because, again, the content was amazing. The imagery actually was great, but due to some misconfigurations in the meta tags, due to improper aspect ratio of images. The different social networks were treating it differently, and that's at the time it was I think Twitter, Facebook, I forget which one, but one's Twitter, one's Facebook, and then the last one's LinkedIn. And so here's where they're currently at. We developed this kind of brand layout, and you can't really see it on here, but the background on the left has this beautiful texture pattern, this kind of custom font that's beautiful and eye-catching, and it is very unique. So we brought their logo in, we brought their brand colors, and we created a repeated pattern. So as you're scrolling through that social feed, you're going to recognize the Animal Rahat post, page, whatever is being shared before your brain even clicks in to what you're reading. You're going to know its association. And so they started several months ago, and we've been able to kind of look at the progress of that over time. And it's cool because the images only get generated on the fly as the pages are requested. So we actually could go in there, and with our analytics, you can see all the most viewed pages. And now when I was talking with Carrie, I was like, we want to kind of do the same for you. Like, you've got this great content, you've got this great imagery, and we're right now in the kind of QA phase. Mm-hmm. Like, we're
so we have not, and we are not live with this. So if you try to go to our website and share something, you're going to see the womp version.
Let's set a calendar reminder for like a week or two. Like,
yeah.
We're literally, the last step is the IT team to deploy it. Like, yep. QA is pretty much done.
Yep. And again, I mean, we have great imagery, but we want you to recognize that it is Oceana when you come across, our content that somebody has shared.
And I've got a few, we've been playing around. I mean, I think we set up like 5 different styles to just trial. So this was one of them. It was like the before and after, just the big image down below. This was iMessage. iMessage is fun because there's 0 caching in iMessage, so when you send something to someone, it immediately appears. No matter if the change was made 2 seconds ago, you see the latest and greatest. Also, one thing we learned in this process was Twitter, now X, retroactively updates thumbnails. So when we were working with PETA and Animal Rahat, we pushed the changes live, and I'm like, how are these tweets from 2021 like using our new image? It literally retroactively applies, and we're still figuring out. I think most of the social networks do this, so they're not just storing these images forever. They're storing one image, the canonical image, and it updates its reference as its cache is clear. So it's really cool. Like, if you do have kind of content seeded out there, it's going to update over time. And one of the things we're seeing is that SEO is changing as far as traditional search. Like, I don't know about you, but my Google search results are becoming vastly inferior.
And you called this at the last EA conference. You really did. You were like, search is about to implode.
Yeah.
We've got to find other ways to get our stuff in front of people.
Yeah, ask someone who's 20 where they go to find recommendations for like where to eat. They'll say they look reviews. What they're doing is they're going on TikTok and Instagram and searching like DC sushi and like who, what posted, what was there, and they're not looking at Google Maps for like some aggregated review. The whole industry is changing, and so social is where people will start going for trusted content. And are you putting your best foot forward, or are you just doing kind of the bare minimum that's been getting everybody by for the last decade?
Also, I want to say, if you want to get in good with your creative team and your executives, this really made our creative team very happy. It's branded, colors, font, all that good stuff. It makes everybody happy.
Yeah, and you can change it at scale too. So if your logo changes, your brand colors change, you want to just trial a different font or something like that. It's like make it update in one place, and now your thousands of pages are updated instantly. So here's some more. What's interesting is there's no unified language for what this is, so we had to come up with our own language internally, and we call the old ones dumb thumbs. There's no thought behind them. The social network's going to do whatever it wants to do with it, and you're like, good luck. And we're calling the new ones smart thumbs. It's a different brand.
Where's this image from? Have you guys ever seen this image? I've never seen it.
I think it was a mock-up.
I was going to say, you picked a great image.
Yeah, we'd have to ask Tayo, our designer. He does like to, just a little best practice, if you ever have an image, if you can, with an animal, if you could have the animal looking at the thing you want someone to look at, your brain will naturally draw your eyes to it. Just a fun little thing. You don't want the animal or the person looking the opposite direction. So Share Thumb is live now. You can search Share Thumb one word on Google. It'll be the top result. Throw a foresight in there if you want. But our service creates branded social sharing imagery at scale. That's the important part. There's nothing preventing you from doing this with a Photoshop template, but guess what? No one is, because it's hard. It's difficult. It's a new process. It doesn't work great if you're producing more content. And it doesn't update. So if you change your branding, you want to try something new, you want to do some A/B testing, good luck. You're going to generate hundreds of those, and then you got to go to every page and update it and clear caches and cross your fingers. But the ultimate goal is to improve that clickability, and through the platform itself, we're now generating new analytics you've never seen before. So because we're controlling the end-to-end of the platform, if I take one of these links to the Oceana homepage and I share it on iMessage, I share it on Slack, our platform actually shows the view as soon as someone looks and the image is displayed to that individual. Normally someone has to click and load a page, but because of that preview that is shown to you, that is a view, and we're now able to record it and surface it. What's really neat is we built out a drop-in-place plugin for WordPress, so it's very straightforward, but this is a general-purpose solution, and it is ready for Engaging Networks donation and advocacy pages, as well as any other CMS you might be working with. So we got a few minutes for questions, and I'll just leave this up on the screen.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So, well, you're kind of over there, so I'll just turn my chair this way, I guess that works.
Come over here.
So, Carrie, what prompted you to start down this journey of social media optimization?
Two things, I think. One, in my previous life at another organization, social media was the focus, and I've seen the way it has changed over time. And the importance of continuing to innovate, iterate, optimize, with anything really, but especially with social media. We see we're still getting a ton of traffic from social, and we see when we share our pages, even amongst ourselves, that they don't look great. And we also put a lot of time in the very beginning of implementing like share buttons on our thank you pages in Engaging Networks. And there are ways to edit that and modify it and all of that, but it's all like manual and by page. And when Brian came to me and said that they had this, and the whole argument about like doing it at scale, we're trying to automate a lot of these more manual things that we're spending a lot of time on. And honestly, whenever Brian and the Foresight team is like, we want to do this cool thing, and I'm like, let's put 5-10 hours to it. Let's do it, because it's really hard for us to step out of the day-to-day to innovate, and a lot of our agency partners are really good at kind of giving us that push.
Yeah. When you think about how fast your different social media channels change, have you found this approach allows you to be more nimble when it comes to experimenting on newer platforms? Like if you wanted to push into Blue Sky, or you wanted to push into Mastodon, that you could kind of take this approach and just be like, well, we know this works over here, so we can try it over there. Have you found that to be easier?
Not particularly, but not for just because, not that it's harder or anything. It's just that we, we're still in the process of implementation for this, but these kind of things are a great like mini case study internally for us to be like, we did this, here's what it got us, now we want to try this. Like, we have got to get on this SMS program. I know we've been talking about SMS all morning. And just like these projects that are small but impactful, for sure, they do help us kind of make a case to test and try other things.
So then, question here, someone wanted a clarification. I thought social platforms, Facebook in particular, have a limit on the amount of text that could be on an image for social ads. Has that changed at all, or is that something that you should be aware of?
No, definitely. And that's for ads specifically. So if you're running a paid ad campaign, you can run into that. What's really cool though is because again, this is more of a software solution, we can be dynamic where you can't be. So just to throw out one hypothetical there, that actually is something we discussed possibly with Animal Rahat, knowing that their WhatsApp audience is likely speaking Hindi or another dialect. We could say, hey, when WhatsApp requests this image, we're gonna translate the title and it will always be served up in Hindi. We could also provide a completely different thumbnail, again, with some of these business processes baked in place, for different social media platforms. So maybe you wanna optimize a title different for the Mastodon audience versus Facebook audience. This is kind of more exotic, but it's something you literally cannot do with your current image. You get one image and that's what you're getting. Maybe the social network has its own meta tag and you get lucky and you can specify Twitter versus Facebook. But this one would allow us to, on the fly, per network and per other permutations, provide different images. And then you can test it and see the results and iterate on that.
Honestly, we would always, for ads, do a completely separate suite of creative that's aligned with the platform, the audience, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I've seen a few. You got some great custom, in-house made images.
Thanks, but it's actually M&R.
They did a great job.
Shout out to M&R.
Oh, that's good.
Last question here. Can I use ShareThumb to know what pages of my website are trending on each platform? And is there a limit to how many thumbs I can create?
Ooh, that's a great question. No, there's no limit to the amount of thumbs you can create. And again, it only gets generated as the image is first requested. So if you have 10,000 pages and you install the service, as soon as someone starts sharing that, or a bot comes along and requests the image, it then on demand generates that image. And then yes, every time the image is previewed, no matter where it gets previewed, anytime that image is pulled in, we record those analytics in the backend and you're able to see 100% insight into it. And what's cool is they're real time. So if you had a campaign running, you could literally pull up that dashboard and watch in real time as the hits are coming in.
Is that preview a separate metric?
It is, no, it is in the dashboard right now. So you do have to log into the app and then every thumbnail gets its own little history as well as customization. So if you needed to go in and make a one-off change and for some reason you didn't have, like Engaging Networks isn't a WordPress CRM, so there's no backend interface to play around with, but you could go into the app and make customizations on a per thumbnail basis through the app. But with WordPress, we baked it all in the platform, so you never need to log in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brian and Ken.
Yeah, thank you.